Again, welcome to tonight's webinar entitled How to Get Help with Your Property Taxes. My name is Carolyn Brown, and I'm with the city's Office of Community Empowerment and Opportunity, which is known as CEO for short. We are very excited to have this opportunity to partner with our colleagues at the Division of Housing and Community Development and the city's neighborhood advisory committees to offer this important webinar on the various property tax assistance programs available in Philadelphia. So whether you're a homeowner or if you're here just to get information that you're going to share with others, I know you're going to find this presentation beneficial. Before we get started, I just want to cover a couple of quick housekeeping items. First, your audio is going to be muted for the duration of the webinar. Second, if you have a question, we're going to ask that you type it into the Q&A box, which you should find at the bottom of your screen. There's also a separate chat box, which you can use to let us know if you're having any technical difficulties or if you have general comments that you want to share with other attendees, as many of you are doing now already. I see that happening. We are going to reserve time at the very end for questions. You're welcome to type questions in the Q&A box at any time. If we don't get to your question immediately, we'll answer it during the Q&A segment. Finally, this webinar is being recorded and the video will be made available to everyone who registered for the event. So thank you again for joining us this evening. I would also like to thank our presenters, Sandi Ramos and Jonathan Sgro, for what I know will be an informative and valuable webinar. At this time, I'll turn the floor over to El Haj from the city's Division of Housing and Community Development to get our webinar underway. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. And good evening to everyone. Welcome to our Tax and Relief Program webinar. We are very pleased to make this presentation, and thank you for the Mayor's Office of Community Empowerment and Opportunity for partnering one more time with DHCD NAC program. And as you know, and again, my name is El Haj, and I supervise the Neighborhood Advisory Committee program for the City of Philadelphia, DHCD. The NAC is a community engagement program. The City of Philadelphia, DHCD, used the NAC to promote the city housing and other programs. But also we use the NAC program to engage with City of Philadelphia residents. To make our job easy, we fund neighborhood organizations through the NAC so that they can help us on the ground. So in this meeting, you will see lots of members from the NAC throughout the city, because we have 21 organizations funded through the NAC program, and also folks who are involved with the NAC, such as our neighborhood advisory subcommittees members. So I just want to make sure that I thank our presenters tonight, Ms. Sandi Ramos and Jonathan from the Community Legal Services. In their presentation this evening, you will learn about programs offered by the City of Philadelphia to assist homeowners with their property taxes. You know, their presentation will cover programs such as homestead exemption a little bit, even though the deadline, passed to put the application through. And also they will be talking about long-time owner occupants programs, senior tax fees, owner-occupied real estate tax payment agreement, and more. Sandi Ramos, who is our first presenters tonight, is from the City of Philadelphia Department of Revenue, and she's the administrator there of Tax Credit and Assistance Program. So without further ado, we are just gonna hand it to Sandy. Sandy, thank you so much for accepting our invitation. And we look forward to your presentation and to learn more about those programs. And if you have questions, just like Karen Brown mentioned, please put it on the Q&A boxes, and we will make sure that those questions will be answered tonight. Thank you so much for your attention. And Sandy, here you are.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here with all of you virtually. I see that my communications team is equally with us, so that's exciting. Christian and Michelle are on this call, so they'll be dropping some links in the chat for you as I talk. And in my presentation, there are some links that I have presented on these slides, just so that you who are following along at home can hold on to these websites and this information that I'm giving you, because you might want to follow up after this is over. So the first thing that you should know is that the Department of Revenue has a lot of really fabulous programs to assist you with your real estate taxes. Just this past October, we released a whole new tax system with our tax system of record. And what we've done, which is super exciting, is we've built in the ability for property owners to manage their real estate taxes on their own. So I've got the link down there. It's the tax-services.phila.gov. That's what we call our Philadelphia Tax Center. And anyone who goes there, you can see your tax bill. You can apply for any of the programs that I'm going to talk about tonight. And if you have other accounts with the city, you can manage all of them. Any other tax accounts with the city, you can manage all of them at that website. So that website right there for you is a really, really good one, the tax-services.phila.gov, to keep in your back pocket. All right, let's keep going. We've got lots to talk about. Okay, so as Alhaj mentioned, the first item I want to talk about, I'm going to talk about this super brief, is our homestead exemption. It is an owner-occupied program. If you own your house and you live in your house, you should be eligible for the homestead exemption. The caveat here is that the deadline was December 1st. And I see someone asking, are we extending the deadline for homestead? Homestead is legislated by state government, and so city cannot control that deadline. That deadline was December 1. If you've applied, we are still processing. We've processed about 33,000 applications so far, and we're releasing some more, so we haven't notified everybody just yet, but we've got about 33,000 applications in this year for homestead, saving folks about $1,119 on their real estate taxes. The important thing to know about this is, even though the deadline is passed, if you are a senior, if you get into one of our other programs that I'm going to talk to you about tonight, you are automatically enrolled into homestead. So super important to know that even if you didn't apply just yet, if you're eligible for some of the other programs, you may still be able to get into this program. So we're gonna move on over to our next slide. All right. Active duty credit. This is for military members on active duty and National Guard. Now, we don't have a ton of people who participate in this, but we would like to recruit and enroll more folks, right? So if you know, or you are an active duty member who is called to duty anywhere outside of Pennsylvania, you could receive a credit on your real estate taxes. You do need to provide proof, and military members know that they can get a letter from their guard to share proof. Really simple and easy application. The website is listed there for you on this screen, and also again on the Philadelphia Tax Center, you can apply on that as well. If you're eligible for the active duty tax credit, we will equally auto enroll you into homestead. So that's super exciting. The deadline to apply for this is March 31st of 2023. Okay. Going to move on to the next one. Senior citizens tax freeze. I see Marianne asking, how is a senior defined? So for the tax freeze, it is someone 65 years or older. If you were 50 and you were married to someone who was 65 at the time of your death, you might also be eligible. Taxes are frozen, so they won't increase in future years. And you have until next September. So you have a whole 9 months still to apply for this program for the 2023 tax year. The city has recently released legislation that says seniors who are eligible can apply to have their taxes frozen retroactive to 2018, what it was in 2018. So there are a lot of people who have applied before probably mid-September who have not filled out our new application. Legislation just changed. We just released a new application online at the website on your screen. You can also apply online on the Philadelphia Tax Center, and you can have your taxes frozen retro to 2018. That is a great deal. Now listen, if you've applied and you freeze it at the 2022 rate, that is great. But freezing it at 2018 is a little bit better. And I think you would all agree with me on that. So I am telling people who have applied, if they were eligible, 65, they met the income guidelines back in 2018. It takes a couple minutes to apply. We do require proof of age and proof of income for this program. Okay, so whatever year, if you were eligible in 2019 or 2020, you can have your taxes frozen. Those years, you do need to provide proof of age and proof of income for whatever year you think you're eligible. This is a great benefit, especially with the assessments that are happening. Folks really want to get in on the 2022 rate, keeping it where it was. A lot of folks want to get in on the 2018 rate, even better. We're excited. Let me say this. A lot of people are asking, and this is really important for me to mention, we have received more homestead applications than we've ever had in the history of homestead. We equally had legislation changes where they've extended the deadline to apply for the senior tax freeze. For those of you who may have applied, we are asking to give us just a little bit more time to process these applications, because we are just dealing with tens of thousands of applications, but we are getting there. Okay, so we know that your tax bills are coming out. Once these applications are processed, you will get a notification from us of the status of that application, and you will also get a new tax bill. So don't fret, we're working on it. If you sent it into us, we have it. If you haven't applied for a back retro as far back as 2018, I do recommend you send in another app, one of the new apps. Okay, we're gonna keep on going. And I know that's a lot of information, friends. I know that's a ton of information. Darnetta says she's seen property tax bills with senior freeze and homestead. Yes, absolutely. If you are eligible for the senior tax freeze, we auto enroll you in the homestead as well, so that you are getting the benefits of both. So super great program. And we think there's about 30,000 or so seniors in our city who might be eligible for this program. So we really want to make sure that our older populations apply, as long as they live in their home, they meet their income guidelines. We want to make sure that they apply. All right. This one's a little bit more technical, and I'm going to try to keep this as simple. Yes, they can. Simple as I can. LOOP, the longtime owner occupant program, equally was just changed by legislation. To have LOOP, you must have lived in your home for 10 years or more. Your income must fall below the limit set for your family size. Let me say this, the income limit for LOOP is really high. Okay, so the income limit is not something that I worry so much about for LOOP, but living in your property for 10 years is more important, okay? Your property taxes have to either be current or you need to be actively enrolled in a payment plan with us. So that means an installment, an UPA, some payment plan where it is not defaulted, it needs to be an active payment plan, okay? And then there is also a caveat about having an abatement. If you had an abatement during the time that you've owned your property, or you got your property from a family member who had an abatement, your property, unfortunately, is not eligible for LOOP. Essentially, what LOOP does, there's two ways you can be eligible for LOOP. If you've met all that stuff, there's two ways you could be eligible for LOOP. Your property would have to jump 50% year over year from 2022 to 2023. It would have to jump 50%, or within the last 5 years, starting 2019 to 23, at any point, your property assessment, your property value has jumped 75% in those 5 years, you may also be eligible. Essentially, this locks you in at a lower rate. Now, the math is confusing. We have put the website up on the screen, phila.gov/loop. If you go to that website, there is a nifty little worksheet that we have developed with the application. There is a nifty little worksheet that is super handy to determine where your property values are, if you're eligible, if your property value has jumped high enough to be eligible for this program. Okay, super important, really easy to use, and I highly recommend that if you think that your property value has increased by either 50% or 75% over 5 years, that you might want to go download that form to see whether or not you're eligible. Again, you can use the application to apply via paper or apply on the Philadelphia Tax Center. All right. We're going to keep on going. I do see a question about the income guidelines for LOOP. I don't have them in front of me. If you go to our website, they are listed there. They're relatively high, Charles. So I'm, you know, I know where you're located. I'm not sure that it's going to be too much of a concern for your population, but the website is on, or the guidelines are on that website. Moving on. Our next program is the real estate tax installment program. Now, the city has a program for low-income residents and seniors that you could pay your real estate taxes in a monthly installment plan. So you have to apply by March 31st of the year, and then your first payment would be due in May. You pay the balance from May to December of the year. Okay, so you wouldn't pay it in one, by March. It would be split across a series of months. And so that is for low-income residents and for seniors. And currently, I do want to say this is the only program where you do need to apply on paper. I do know that there's a little glitch in this on the web, so we do ask if you're applying for the installment plan that you do apply on paper for the time being. All right, keep on going. The UPA, Owner Occupied Payment Agreement, or the SUPA-UPA. This essentially is for folks who are falling behind, who are becoming tax delinquent. Anyone can get approved for an UPA, which is a payment agreement, and it's based on your income, which determines what you pay towards your delinquent real estate taxes. While you're in an UPA, as long as you are actively paying, it protects your home from going into sheriff's sale and that kind of thing. And for super low income individuals or for seniors, your monthly payment could be as low as $0 a month. Now, getting into an UPA does not make your real estate tax go away. However, it does hold on to that amount until at which time you can make more payments or bigger payments and pay it off. So it does essentially save your home, which is what is most helpful for a lot of our lower income residents. And there are different tiers for that. You can find a bigger breakdown of UPA on the web, phila.gov/UPA. You can also now, for the first time ever, apply on the Philadelphia Tax Center. You can upload all of your documents, which is super exciting. If you're working with a housing counselor, they can help you with that. It can all be done online now, which is really great. The other fabulous thing that I do want to mention about applying online is if you include an email address, you will get an email instantaneously from the department that says, hey, we have received your application. This is your code. You can always check back using that code. You have something to reference. So that's really exciting that we instantly give you notification of receiving your app online. All right, let's keep going. If you want to make payments, you want to contact us, this is how. Next slide. All right. We have 2 locations open for you. We have the Municipal Services Building at 1401 JFK. That's the concourse. That's downstairs in our lower level, open from 8:30 to 5, Monday through Friday. And we also have our northeast site available, 7522 Castor Avenue, again, available Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. Next slide. If you're looking to pay a bill, you can pay a bill on the Philadelphia Tax Center. You can go online to phila.gov/pay. E-checks are free. You can equally call it in or mail in your bill, as well as I mentioned, you can drop it off to us. So lots and lots of ways to pay your real estate tax bill. And I shared with you water's information as well. Okay. All right, we'll get that for you, Cheryl. So if you have any questions about your real estate taxes at all, we have a phone number here for you, 215-686-6442. If you're calling specific to Homestead and Loop, we do have a hotline specific to answer questions about those 2 programs, which is 685-9200. Email revenue@phila.gov. And then the last thing that I want to share with you today is that the Department of Revenue is always happy to come out to your community events, resource fairs, neighborhood pop-ups, events like these. We have a whole outreach team who is happy to hop into your community, your churches, where your friends and family congregate to share more information and to provide services in the community. We can do that in a multitude of languages, and we are here to help as best as we can. So if you need us, the next screen has Vicki Riley. She is our Public Information Officer, and we're just going to leave this up here for a second, vicki.riley@phila.gov. If you would like to request a department come out to your event, you can reach out to Vicki and make that request, and she'll be happy to attend. Okay.
Thank you so much, Sandy. That was a great presentation, and also a lot of questions and answers. But anyway, to all the participants, if you think that your question wasn't answered, do not worry. Just, you can follow up, or just like follow those links or email address, website for more information. And I wanted to just say hi to my NAC family again, because I see a lot of the family member in this webinar tonight. That's exciting. So thank you for joining us. So we're gonna jump to our second presenters, Jonathan. You guys know Jonathan from the Community Legal Services. He's a lawyer there at the Home Ownership and Consumer Rights. So Jonathan, without further ado, you got the floor.
Already, thanks.
Please, before you start, please, and just same thing, if you have questions, please drop it at the Q&A box there. We'll address them. And I'm gonna keep repeating this also at the end of this webinar. please fill out the survey after the webinar. Please fill out the survey. This is extremely important. And thank you so much for doing that. Jonathan, I'm so sorry, apologize.
No. Thank you. Thank you, Alhaji. And thanks everyone for being here. As Alhaji said, my name is Jonathan Sgro. I'm an attorney at Community Legal Services, where I lead our property tax work. I have worked here for 7 years and spent the whole time representing Philadelphia homeowners who primarily have delinquent property taxes and are facing property tax foreclosures. But we also represent clients in a number of other ways related to their property taxes, including helping them get access to some of the programs that Sandi talked about. So as I just want to start by saying thank you to Sandi and thank you to the Department of Revenue for the great job that they do making these programs accessible to the public. You know, certainly it should not require a lawyer to get access to these programs, and in most cases it does not. But I'm here tonight to talk about some situations where folks might need a lawyer and legal help when kind of people's eligibility in the application process gets a little more complicated and requires some assistance. But actually, before I do that, during the course of Sandi's presentation, I realized one thing, that Sandi didn't talk about the Pennsylvania tax rebate program, and she didn't because the city doesn't administer that program. That's not something that the Department of Revenue for the city oversees. It's actually a state program, and I want to give it a quick plug because the deadline's actually coming up on December 31st. For those who don't know, the Pennsylvania Tax and Rent Rebate Program returns a portion of tax or rent paid on a person's primary residence in the prior year. So the application deadline, December 31st, is for taxes that were paid in 2021, not 2022. So it's the prior year. And that could result in a rebate of up to $975 to low-income seniors and low-income adults with disabilities. There are income requirements. I think the maximum income is about $35,000, but the income eligibility gets a little funky. I don't think they count about half of Social Security income. So it's definitely worth looking into. And I can put a link in the chat in a minute. One other reason I bring it up for this year is the state, I think through some additional federal money that the state received, is going to give folks an additional 70% of the rebate amount that they were going to get anyway. So there's kind of this additional boost to the money that folks can get through the rebate program this year. So it's really important if folks are eligible to get the applications in by December 31st. And I will post a link in the chat right now. All righty, with that, I think I can move into my slides. All right, so as I said, I'm primarily going to talk about situations where lawyers might be necessary to help folks gain access to these programs. And the first kind of situation I want to talk about is tangled titles. It's a term folks may be familiar with or maybe not. A tangled title is a situation when a person has an ownership interest in their house, but their name is not on the deed. And the most common example of this is a situation where someone has inherited a property from a loved one or a family member that has passed away. Actually, a very, very high percentage of our clients at CLS who we help with property tax issues have tangled titles, and the majority of them are folks who have inherited properties. Pew did a study in the last year or so that estimated that there's over 10,000 properties in Philadelphia with tangled titles and are in this situation. In addition to heir properties, some other examples of tangled titles are folks who have rent-to-own agreements or installment contracts where they're paying money to purchase the property over time and they're only going to get a deed at the end. That's another example. Some people have actual deeds to their homes, but they haven't been recorded. Sometimes that happens because folks can't afford to pay the filing fee or transfer tax, so the deed goes unrecorded, but they still have a legal ownership interest in the property. And the final example I'll give are, kind of the nightmare scenario where maybe there's been some deed fraud or some shenanigans with a person's deed that requires litigation to restore ownership of the property. Next slide. The most important thing to hear tonight about this is that folks in this situation with tangled titles are eligible for all of the property tax relief programs that Sandi talked about. Those situations make it a bit more complex. It might require some additional forms or some additional documents, but the bottom line is homeowners with tangled titles are eligible for these programs, and they absolutely should apply. Once enrolled, it does come with a little bit of a catch. If you have a tangled title situation, the agreements will require you to take steps to get your name on the deed within a certain time period, usually 3 years. And for that reason, it's really important, if you're in this situation, to seek help from a lawyer immediately. And we at CLS represent folks with tangled titles to not only access these programs, but to help them get clear title to their properties. All right, next slide. Another situation I'll talk about tonight that might involve the need for a lawyer or a housing counselor or some kind of assistance are situations when folks are initially denied from one of these programs. So for all of the programs that Sandi talked about, applicants have the right to appeal if their application is denied. For the freeze, for loop, and for UPA, folks can appeal to the tax review board 60 days from the date of the denial notice. For the homestead, it's a little different, and you start to get into a very confusing alphabet soup here. For the homestead exemption, if you are denied, you have to appeal to the BRT, the Board of Revision of Taxes, within 30 days of the date of your denial notice. But I think I need folks to hear loud and clear that if you get a denial notice from one of these programs and you think it was a mistake, you think you're eligible, you absolutely should file an appeal. You should reach out to us at CLS to get assistance with that process. All right, next slide. I'm going to talk for a few minutes about the 2023 assessments. Just because I think it's kind of a major issue in the city right now, and probably a large reason why a lot of folks are here today. Property owners received their new notices of valuation in September and October, giving them notice of their new assessed values for the 2023 tax years. So those are the assessed values that the Department of Revenue then uses to calculate folks' tax bills for the 2023 tax year. The 2023 assessments are the first citywide reassessment since 2019, since before the pandemic. And that's important to note because it means that there's a number of years of appreciation in the real estate market in Philadelphia that are kind of baked into these new assessments. And as a result, people's assessments citywide, on average, are increasing 31%, which is pretty significant. And what we know from the Inquirer and from an analysis that the Controller's Office did is that some of the increases are much higher in certain neighborhoods where there's more development happening, neighborhoods that are rapidly gentrifying or close to neighborhoods that are rapidly gentrifying. Those homeowners are seeing increases well above that 31% average. And this really matters because a 31%, if you're not in any of the tax relief programs that Sandi talked about, a 31% increase in your assessment equals a 31% increase in your tax bill. And that is a pretty darn large jump in a tax bill for folks to absorb, particularly people living on fixed incomes. So that is why it is particularly important to get access to these programs that Sandi talked about. Next slide. My advice to you, if you got your new assessment or your new tax bill and you're realizing for the first time that your 2023 assessment is really, really high, my very strong recommendation is to pursue both options. You know, if you think your assessment is too high, if you think the OPA got it wrong and your house is not worth what the city says it is, you can file an appeal, and you should, but you absolutely should also enroll in the tax relief programs that Sandy talked about. Those options are not mutually exclusive. You can pursue both at the same time. And certainly because there are deadlines for each of these things, you should be getting on the ball and making sure you're doing everything that you possibly can to protect yourself from these higher assessments. You know, it's certainly true that for some homeowners, the relief programs and the recent changes to them, which made them a bit more generous and more protective, those relief programs alone will offer maybe enough protection from the increased assessments. But for other folks, those programs might not be enough, and they might want to consider an appeal as well. So certainly my advice is to consider both options and pursue everything that you can. All right, next slide. Folks may know that the deadlines to file appeals of your assessments actually have passed. The first level review deadline, which is an informal appeal of your assessment, which goes to the Office of Property Assessment, that deadline passed on December 2nd. And the deadline to file a formal appeal to the BRT passed on October 3rd. However, I'm talking about it now because there is a process with the BRT to still file a late appeal. There's kind of a complicated Latin name for a late appeal. It's called nunc pro tunc, and you would have to fill out an additional form, essentially asking the BRT to accept your appeal late. And you fill out this additional nunc pro tunc form in which you have the burden to explain why you missed the deadline. And the standard is that the petitioner has to prove that their delay in filing was caused by non-negligent happenstance or unique and compelling factual circumstances. That's really a fancy way to say something outside of their control. You know, they weren't negligent, they didn't just ignore the deadline, but they had a reason that prevented them from doing it that was outside of their control. And what we at CLS have been telling folks is that we think most people in the city of Philadelphia have a good reason for missing the deadline because the notices of valuation that the city sent went out much later this year than they ordinarily do. And in fact, most people received them in September, very close, maybe only a week or 2 weeks before that October 3rd deadline. So I certainly can't guarantee it, but I do believe that reason is something that folks should mention if they're considering filing a late appeal to the BRT. And included in this slide is a link to the BRT's website where you can access the appeal form and the additional nunc pro tunc form to file late. All right, next slide. Okay. This is kind of the scary part of the presentation, but we'd certainly be remiss if we didn't talk about it. Property tax foreclosures. If folks are unable to pay their property taxes within the year in which they are due, they then become delinquent. And the city has the right and the ability under state law to file a tax foreclosure with the ultimate consequence, if the case is not resolved, of possibly selling a property at a tax sale, at a sheriff sale, to then collect the delinquent taxes. You will see in these cases that there's a lot of language that might not be familiar to most people because it's a little different from ordinary civil lawsuits. The initial filing in those cases is called a petition for rule to show cause. These cases are also a little different from ordinary cases in that they do not require personal service. That means if you are facing a property tax foreclosure, nobody is going to come to your door and serve you with legal papers the way they would if it was a mortgage foreclosure or if it was a debt collection lawsuit. In fact, in these cases, the only notice is required to be sent by mail and by posting on the property. And that's important to note because sometimes folks don't check their mail, or they see the thing on their property and it blows away, or they don't realize what it is. So it's really important to know that that's how folks get notice of these things. One very good change that we advocated for years ago was to ensure that all of these property tax cases are automatically scheduled for a hearing in courtroom 676 in City Hall automatically, regardless of whether or not the person files an answer or anything to respond to the lawsuit. So this process in courtroom 676 is really intended as a diversionary process to give people time to enter a payment agreement, like the owner-occupied payment agreement program that Sandi talked about, or file an appeal of some sort. It's basically to get the parties together to try to work out a way to resolve the case so that it doesn't need to be litigated and it doesn't need to progress to the stage where the property gets listed for sheriff sale. The name of the game, if someone is facing a property tax foreclosure, is to show up. If you attend your court hearings in courtroom 676, you should receive at least 2 automatic continuances of 90 days, meaning you show up the first time, if you don't reach a resolution and you haven't been able to get into a payment agreement, you should be able to get a new court date 90 days later. You show up again, you could get another 90 days. So that's intended to give people the time that they need to either pay the debt in full, get into a payment agreement, or pursue an appeal. So it's very, very important to show up. If you do not show up, the city could get a default judgment, which would essentially give them all that they need to then list the property for sheriff sale. Okay. Certainly, if somebody, you or somebody you know, is facing a property tax foreclosure, they should be getting help from a housing counselor or from a legal services organization like CLS or PLA, because that's, we are here primarily to help folks and make sure that they don't lose their homes due to delinquent property taxes. Sandi talked about the owner-occupied payment agreement program. 99% of the tax foreclosure cases that I get involved in are resolved by helping the homeowner get enrolled in an UPA, in an owner-occupied payment agreement. And that's because once the person is in an owner-occupied payment agreement, the city's policy right now is to just withdraw those foreclosure cases. Once the person's in the agreement, the city withdraws the case and it goes away. Local law says if a person is enrolled in an owner-occupied payment agreement, the city is prohibited from filing a tax foreclosure. So the owner-occupied payment agreement program, if you have delinquent property taxes, is absolutely the #1 way to prevent the city from filing a foreclosure or proceeding to a sheriff sale. And we at CLS work on those programs every day. And this slide is how you can get in touch with us. We at CLS represent low-income homeowners, so we do have some income restrictions, and you must live and occupy your home. But if you meet that criteria, we are available to provide free legal assistance in your case. And there's a couple of different ways to get to us. The first number I have listed here is actually the Save Your Home Philly hotline, which is not run by CLS. It's run by our sister organization, Philadelphia Legal Assistance. That's a great number to call if you're not really sure whether you need a lawyer or a housing counselor, because the Save Your Home Philly hotline can help connect folks to both housing counselors and lawyers if they think, a lawyer needs to be involved in the case. But they have the ability to directly schedule meetings and appointments with housing counselors. So that's a great point of kind of a catch-all point of contact to get access to this kind of assistance. So that's the Save Your Home Philly hotline. You could also call CLS directly at this 215-981-3700 number during certain times, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday between 9 and noon. The third way to potentially get in touch with us is through our walk-in intake at our North Philly office where I work. It's basically a Broad and Erie. We are doing walk-in intake, in-person intake these days, Mondays and Wednesdays between 8:30 and 11:30 a.m. So those are a couple of different ways to get to us. And that concludes my slides. I have been babbling on and ignoring the Q&A here. So if folks can tell me what questions I should answer, I'm happy to do so.
Well, thank you so much, Jonathan, for a great presentation tonight. And you know, we are being pressured by time. So we will go to those questions on the box first. That folks wanted to address. And I think we're gonna start with Carolyn Brown. There's a question that you wanted to answer live, and then we'll go to Sophie Adam because she wants to answer Diane and Darnetta, Charles, Karen Brown, Jackie Wong questions. So Carolyn, you wanted to address the first question, I think it was?
Actually, I think that question was directed to Sandy. So I just flagged it. I think Sophie probably did the same, flagged it so that Sandy could address it live.
Good. Thank you. So Sophie, you wanna take it from here and answer those questions quickly?
I'm not answering questions. I just flagged them so that they could be answered live by Sandy or Jonathan. Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
We can go down the list, I think, and answer some of these. I did, while Jonathan was presenting, I did answer a lot of these questions in the chat. I have to figure out, look, I've got a few screens. So I think Carolyn Rodriguez had asked, will the deadline for homestead be extended past December 1st? And the answer to that is no. Unfortunately, the city is not in control of setting that deadline. Is actually set by the state. And so the deadline for homestead has passed and will not be extended. So that's your short answer. We do still have applications that have come in that have been postmarked and have been received before that. We will continue to process, but anything that has come in after the 1st will not be accepted. There's another question about, oh gosh, where do we, I think I've answered a few, so how do we, I'm not sure the best way to go. Haji, where do you want to go from there?
I think there was some Q&A on the box. Okay, let me grab some of them. For senior citizens real estate, how income calculate? Do they calculate like the state, half of the SSA?
Sure. So for the senior citizens tax freeze, we are accepting all of your income for whichever year that you are applying for. So if you have a pension, you need to include that. If you are a single individual or a married individual, you need your income or your spouse's income. It's not half of the Social Security. It is your Social Security award for the year. So when you look at that application, it's very specific. It tells you all the different types of income. Sometimes folks just give us their Social Security and leave out their pension, which makes them not eligible. But pension and other types of income are required to be included in that application. Oh, you're muted.
Jonathan, I think you talked about it, but is there legal help with tangle title for people who may be over the income guideline for CLS?
Well, that's a tough question. So we at CLS have some funding that allows us to go higher than folks might expect. So I would say you should call us and we can work through whether or not we can represent you. And if we can't, we could point you in the right direction. Certainly it is sometimes the case that if folks' income is too high, that we do have to refer them to the Bar Association referral hotline. But we actually at CLS have the most flexible funding of the various legal services organizations. So I would suggest you get in touch with us and we can kind of look at it on a case-by-case basis.
Wonderful, thank you. And I think that'll answer Charles and also Miss Diane Monroe. So always call CLS. You got the number at the end of the Jonathan presentation for like specific. Have we passed the deadlines? What can we do to open the appeal process?
Yeah, I wonder if that question was in reference to the assessments. The reason I focused on the BRT appeal process is because there is, the actual law that exists around that process contemplates the possibility of filing a late appeal by filling out the additional form that I referenced. It's called a nunc pro tunc appeal. You need to give an explanation for why you missed the deadline, but you can still file a late appeal. You should do it as soon as possible, though. Don't wait around just because I'm telling you you could do it. Do it as soon as possible and give them a good reason why you didn't meet the October 3rd deadline.
Wonderful. And so once again, the deadline for property assessment appeal.
Yeah, so for the assessments, but I mean, both of those initial deadlines have passed. The FLR deadline was December 2nd and the BRT appeal deadline was October 3rd. But what I am recommending strongly is to still file late with the BRT.
And Sheila wants to know if there is a mask requirement at your office, CLS.
Yes, CLS is still requiring masking. If folks arrive without a mask, we can provide them.
And there will be the recording will be available, and will be everybody that register will get a copy of this presentation, of course. Ms. Diane Monroe saying none of my questions have been answered, and I just sent some, so we'll go up to see what was those questions. Sandy gave the us. So when will the homestead application open for 2023? Sandy.
Sure. Well, we are still currently getting through, so you apply in 2022 to have it shown towards your 2023 to offset your 2023 real estate taxes. So that period has closed. In January, we will reopen so that folks can start applying for the following year. The problem with, so let me say this. This is the first time we've ever had such a robust website where folks can apply online. The other thing is when we open it so soon, we're not going to process it for 10 more months. And so we will hold on to it, but we will have that application up and available, in short order.
Sandy, I'm not sure if that's me, but I'm getting some echoes when you are speaking, your audio. I don't know, Jonathan, is it the same case with you? Your audio, I think there's a problem with your audios. And I think also the audience are getting the same problems.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's still going on. There's like a loud audio or like echoes. It's like you're getting a feedback. Do you have like two this equipment now? So our tech guy, hopefully, can't do nothing. Solomon Lynch. All right, so what we're gonna do is that we'll find the way, because it's 7 o'clock, and this, unless you wanna go out quickly, like for a couple of minutes, and then we'll entertain some of the questions with Jonathan and Colin and myself.
Yeah, I could probably.
Yeah, if you wanna go out and come back, Sandy, to see if it's gonna work. Thank you. So, Jonathan, maybe we can go through this question.
Yeah, I'm looking at a question from Heather Davis Jones. Do I have to apply for the homestead with every new assessment?
Right.
The answer to that is no, that once you're enrolled in the homestead, you don't have to reapply each year. It's automatically remains on the account. The one caveat, the one circumstance where you would have to reapply is if you have made a change to your deed. Any change to your deed will automatically get you kicked out of all of these programs that Sandi talked about. So that's something to be really careful about. And to know before you record any kind of new deed, even if you yourself are retaining some ownership interest in the property, it's just an automated process through the Department of Revenue. So you need to be a little careful about that.
And I think someone also asked the question about homestead, and she said that she applied for homestead a while ago and haven't received an answer. Is it something common?
Yes, I saw that question. I was hoping Sandi could answer that question because I think the one circumstance that is, I think, the folks in this call who help taxpayers access these programs, that you're going to get this question a lot, that people are going to be getting their tax bills. They're already being sent out and they're going to see their bill and realize that it's not, their bill doesn't reflect enrollment in the homestead, or it doesn't reflect approval of their senior freeze application. And what that's going to require is for the Department of Revenue, once the application is approved, to then reissue a new tax bill. But I personally, because I don't work for the department, I don't know exactly what the time frame might be on getting that new bill. But I do believe we're going to get a lot of concerned calls from homeowners who are seeing higher bills.
And for those who lived, for those who lived not far from our NAC offices, you can also visit our NAC. Not sure if you type or you can email me and I will talk to you and see what is the closest NAC. I have my email address on the chat earlier. And you will see I'm going to add it again, alhaji.njai@phila.gov. And I think Sandi is back. I'm not sure if her audio is better. Sandi, you want to try again?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh, that's perfect. This is so awesome.
Great. So I think there was a question about applications being opened. We will reopen the process in January for homestead applications. However, the biggest problem that we have with that is they'll be processed for 2024. And so if you apply in January, we will be holding your applications for some time. And so that causes, sometimes a little bit of confusion because we're still processing applications for 2023, but that will be available and we will hold on to them if folks choose to apply early.
Thank you. And thank you, Carolyn, for sharing the link for the next. I appreciate that. And also, while you was out, Sandi, someone asked about her application status. So she says she applied for homestead, but haven't received any response. I don't know if it's something that is common. Can you address that?
So as I mentioned earlier, we've received over 33,000 homestead applications. Not to share too much information, but I have a team of 6 people who process all of that. It's more applications that we've received in the history of homestead. So we're processing, we're actively processing. We're releasing about, I think, 3,000 more overnight, but we just got a bunch, so anybody who has applied before November 21st should have been notified, and it should have received the notice and a secondary bill. And anyone who's applied after that, you will receive your notification in short order.
Thank you. And this question from Stasia: if a homeowner with an application in process, like homestead, need their bill to be reissued, how can they avoid penalties for non-payment? Do they have to pay the original tax bill while they wait for the application to process?
Yes, so if someone has a formal appeal with the BRT, and if they're have an appeal for their market value assessment, then the law is that they can pay their taxes at the same rate that they paid last year without any interest and penalty. I would say to you that we still have 3 months before your real estate tax bills are due, and we are actively processing applications, notifying taxpayers, and sending folks out a second bill. So should you need extra time and you have an application into us, we will send you out a secondary bill, which will give you additional time to pay.
Great. And I'm gonna send this to Jonathan. Can a developer pressure the city to issue a tax foreclosure on a property behind their taxes?
No, there is no legal mechanism for a developer to force the city to do that.
Great, great. And also, do not forget to get the link for our NACs. You know, they are great helper, and they are, you know, around the corner maybe from where you live. So you don't have to come all the way downtown. You could try them first, and they will try to connect you with Revenue Department or CLS. You know, it's very important. So thank you so much, Carolyn, for putting the link there. And I see that a lot of my families are putting their address there. I appreciate that. You know, thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Sam, Kevin Brown, Charles, Carolyn, Rodriguez, Tasia. Can name you all. So I'm trying to go through the Q&A to see if I'm not missing something.
So Haji, I do see a question. Diane, I did type back a response to you, but I wanted to verbalize because I think maybe you hadn't seen it. You asked a question about seniors who do not have internet accessibility. So
Yep.
At any time, someone can call the department to get an application sent to them. So I was going to say email us, but if you don't have internet, you know, email is not a value to you. So you can call us. We would be happy to mail you an application. You can come into both our Center City location at the Municipal Services Building, 1401 JFK, or if you live in the Northeast, the other office that we have, you can also pick up applications there. Equally, the NAC can get them for you, and any of your community agencies can equally provide those applications to you as well.
Thank you. And this one, I'm not sure if I'm gonna say it right. How are you impacted if your mortgage company escrow your T&I? Will they be collecting the new amount?
Yeah, so this is something that we at CLS are pretty concerned about. You know, under federal law, mortgage servicers who manage a mortgage borrower's escrow account, they're required to pay folks taxes on time. And what that means is in a situation where someone has applied for a program and they haven't yet gotten a revised bill, what's likely to happen is the mortgage company is probably just going to advance the initial amount billed, whatever the, you know, the face value is of the 2023 bill before any revision. And then they would issue a new escrow analysis, potentially increasing that borrower's required escrow payment to make up for the shortage. And then if a bill is later revised, they could then engage in kind of a refund process to get the money, any excess, returned to the mortgage servicer. But that could definitely create a lot of complications for people with mortgages.
I should just jump in there and say that the Revenue Department did prioritize homestead applications who had a bulk requester, who had a mortgage servicer on their accounts. And so if you had a homestead application into us, I think it was through November 21st, we have processed your application, and if you were approved, your mortgage servicer was provided the amount with the homestead on your account. And so we did make a important decision there to prioritize those folks who had that homestead application into us.
Thank you. And also, I think I said it earlier, please help us complete that survey after the webinar. Please help us, because it's going to be very helpful to follow up this conversation that we're having right now. Are critical challenges for the city residents right now. And we're trying to focus on that. And that's why we invited Sandi and Jonathan, and thank you for their presentation, so that we can get the conversation going. And away from here, you know, to my NAC family, please continue this conversation, because we are going to be swamped with people with tax assessment, tangled title, and all these questions. So, you know, please make sure that you reach out. If Jonathan not available, or Sandi, I'm sure someone from the Revenue Department or Community Legal Services can join our community meeting with the NACs. And please fill out the survey. Please fill out the survey. That's very important. And I'm not sure, Carolyn, you tell me if I missed any questions, because I know it's getting late and people must go get their dinner. Any question, Carolyn? You see something that I missed?
Just one, which is actually pretty complicated, and I think directed toward Jonathan. It says, please explain the tax lien sale where the lien is sold to a third party.
Or Kevin Brown.
Okay, so to the best of my knowledge, the last time the city did this was 2016, where they had sold a relatively small number of tax liens to third parties. So there were some entities, LLCs, that purchased delinquent tax liens from the city of Philadelphia, and those purchasers now have the right to collect those delinquent taxes in the same way that the city could collect them. So what that means is that there are some folks who are facing tax foreclosures filed by a tax lien purchaser instead of the city itself. And certainly if you or someone you know finds yourself in that situation, that's definitely the kind of case that CLS would like to know about if it's affecting homeowners, because I think an effort was made by the city to not sell liens that were on occupied properties. So it's my understanding that the majority of the properties where there were lien sales were commercial properties or properties that were vacant land or otherwise not occupied by homeowners. But you certainly, we see them from time to time.
While you're there, Jonathan, can you answer this? A question for Jonathan. If a foreclosure property receives more money than the taxes, who gets the overage?
Okay, so when a property is sold at a sheriff's sales for delinquent taxes, it's the sheriff's office's responsibility to distribute the proceeds from that sale. They take the money from the purchaser, the highest bid, and then they distribute that money to pay off the liens and the debts on the property in kind of the order that's dictated by state law. So taxes always get paid first, but if there's water debt, that's going to get paid too. If there's a mortgage, that debt's going to get paid. However, and I think this is getting to the answer to the question, if there's any money left over after those debts have been paid, that money should be returned to the prior owner of the property. The important thing to know, though, is it's not automatic. That if you are the owner of a property that was sold at a tax sale, to get access to those excess proceeds, to that remaining money, you need to fill out an application at the sheriff's office. I think they call that program HART now, the Homeowner Asset Recovery Program, something like that. But there's a form where you need to make that request to get access to that money.
And last question, I applied for homestead exemption in October, have mortgage servicer, and have not received a revised bill.
So I did just send a private message saying if you could email me directly your address, I would be happy to take a peek and look into it for you.
Thank you. So to Jonathan and Sandy, thank you so much, for taking time out of your busy schedule in a short notice, to answer all these questions. And what a wonderful evening of information. Thank you so much. And I always wanted to thank also my partner in crime, Carolyn Brown from CEO. Always great, always, working with the NACs since a long time. So Carolyn, thank you so much, for this wonderful, overall to you, to Sophie, Claire, Solomon, behind the scene guy. He made sure that everything runs smoothly. So thank you so much, Solomon. We look forward to working with you because this one was great. It was great. And to my NAC family and everybody who participated, thank you so much. And please share this information with your network, your next door neighbor, your friends, your family, Black captains, everybody that you know. Please share this information because we are going through tough times. And please complete the survey. Please help us complete the survey. And with that, I'm going to send it back to Carolyn Brown.
Thank you, El-Haj, and thank you, everyone. Again, great webinar. Really looking forward to getting your feedback on the surveys, and it'll really help us just for planning future events. So thank you all. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, everyone, for attending. Have a great rest of the evening and a wonderful holiday season.
And if God willing, you're able, we'll do it again.
Yes.